Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
All right. I just noticed there was another sermon up here when I put my sermon on top of it. So if I start doing like last week's sermon, like in the middle of this one, you'll know why. So that would be kind of weird, just going along and, oh, look, page 2, it's last week. So I will try to avoid that. But we have been talking about people of faith kind of this whole year. And we have moved into this place where we're talking about sin in people of faith. Because you can have faith in God, yet still sin. How do we know that? Because we do. And because we can look at this great cloud of witnesses, these people who have been strong in the faith, and look at them and go, they sin too. How can God love a sinner who has said, I am going to follow Christ, or I am going to believe in God and in His promises, yet sins? How does that work? How is that okay? Faith is this concept of believing in something that you can't see, knowing that it is real, but not being able to touch it, smell it, taste it. It's difficult to quantify. But if faith is something you have in your life, it ends up coloring your life. Now, you might be able to have faith in a person, or faith that you will win the lottery someday. I don't know why anyone would have that. But you can have faith in things, but when you have faith in something, it colors what you do in life. If you have faith you will win the lottery, what do every time you have opportunity to play? You go to the store and get your little ticket so that you might win. If you have faith in your ability to play golf, you might go somewhere where you could actually win some money playing golf. If you had faith that when you hit the ball, it would go where you wanted it to go. There are many people in here who suffer from not having faith in their golf balls. Thanks, Dennis. When you have faith, it colors what you do. And faith, when it comes to God, or when it comes to the beginning of the universe, or how we exist, when that faith comes into play, it gives us something called a worldview. It gives us assumptions about the way life will work. Faith colors how we look at the world. Now, we've been looking at sin in a particular faith life. And that faith life is King David. Most of you are probably familiar with King David. He was a king of Israel, the second king of Israel, the great king of Israel, the one from whose line the Messiah would come, the promised one that would be God's Son, the Savior of not only the people of Israel, the Jews, but also the rest of the world. So, David is a big name in the Bible. David is a man after God's own heart. He is in the hall of faith with all of these people of faith in the New Testament, in Hebrews, and the apostles call him a man of faith, yet we look at him and he sinned. Now, he had more than one sin in his life, but one that probably overarches the rest is David and Bathsheba. So last week we began talking about them. But David, in the midst of having his assumption about life, that God was the center of his life, he sinned. He kind of turned against his belief, his faith, his assumption about life, and ended up choosing sin. Well, some of you may notice that I have this really awesome little boy. His name is Xavier, if you haven't met him yet. He's a little bit taller than my knee now, but he runs around all over the place, and he is cute and sweet and wonderful and sometimes very very difficult. I'm sure if you've had children, you have never had that problem with your children. All of yours turned out perfectly the way you wanted to, and every time you told them what to do, they always obeyed. Not like cats or anything. But sometimes I can take him and we can get ready to eat dinner. And he's waiting because dinner's not quite on the table, and he has some toys. One of his favorites right now to have at the dinner table is to have this awesome Tonka pickup truck that's about yay big that I had when I was a kid, and his little excavator tractor. And he likes to play with those on his little white tray that fits into his high chair. He likes to play with those. Well, he's playing along, and there is this time when dinner actually comes out. And he is happy as all get out to play with his toys. But when I say, Xavier, you need to put those over on the table so that we can put your food on your tray, he begins to do something like, he holds his toys close to his chest, and he shows a little bit of resistance. He gets a little bit, maybe you could call it a little poopy face, but I don't want to do that. He doesn't want to give up his toys and put them on the table. Well, then there is the moment when it comes to you need to put your toys on the table because Daddy is letting you know it is time to eat, or Mommy, for that matter, is letting you know it's time to eat. Put them over there. So eventually, it comes to a point where this little wrapped up, tense little boy goes, I don't want to! Okay? And it changes from this passive resistance to defiance. To this, I don't want to put my toys on the table. I want to keep playing with them. It's one thing to sulk, but it's another thing to be defiant. While to some degree it is super cute hearing him saying, I don't want to, because, in that little kid voice, it's kind of cute. But if you let that go and he becomes a junior higher and still has I don't want to, it is not quite so cute anymore. So it's probably a good idea to deal with it now. He wants to challenge authority, get his way. Xavier goes from a beautiful little boy to resistant and sulking cute to defiant meaning pretty quickly. I think David shows us that even as people of faith, we step into making defiant choices. We go, no, God, I don't want to. And we can do that pretty quickly. So I want to show you here in 2 Samuel 11, 3 through 5, as we look at this anatomy of David's sin, at these pieces, we found out previously in the verses that David put himself in a bad position, where this web of sin could capture him. And now we move into verse 3 where it says, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite? Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. She had purified herself from her uncleanliness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, I am pregnant. David could have simply walked away from the beautiful temptation that he saw from his roof. That he looked down upon Bathsheba and saw her there and was like, she's beautiful. And then it became, I want that. David made a choice. He could have left it alone, could have walked back to his movie or his video games. He could have read the newspaper, could have taken a cold shower. Matter of fact, David could have ordered up perfectly lawfully one of his own concubines and to his desire. But he chose sin. We often believe that sin out of ignorance is okay, and we think that, as long as I'm not really thinking about it, that sin's okay. It's all right if I don't know if it's quite so bad to do that. Maybe it is, but it'll be okay. That kind of sinning, for some reason, doesn't separate us from God. That sinning where we do something that might seem like it might be okay because, hey, everybody else is doing it. We test the waters sometimes to see if we can actually park somewhere over the 2-hour limit. Or if we can go faster than those 2 little black numbers on that sign say along the road. Or perhaps we don't need to wear our seatbelt. Or perhaps maybe I can drink just a little bit more of this wine or alcohol of some sort. Maybe I can go just a little bit further in this area where I shouldn't be. And we think, oh, that's not like David. That's not like making a choice to sin. But any sin separates us from God. Any sin. David, unlike having some sin where he accidentally did something, he stepped up to the plate. He went for it. David stepped into this web of sin that Satan had laid out for him. David didn't go into battle like most kings should have done. David got up. His sleep was disturbed. David could see a woman bathing. David did not have a woman with him that night. And David jumped right into Satan's trap. Now, David's first choice that he makes after seeing Bathsheba, after not averting his eyes, is to find out some more information. Isn't it okay to find out some more information? So he went over and decided to Google her or to Facebook, check out her Facebook profile to see what she was about. Maybe David asked some of his friends, hey, do you know that girl? What's she about? Who is she? And David found out some information. He found out the things he wanted to know. After all, it is good to be king. You should be able to find out the information you want to know. So, the odd thing is that he finds out a bunch of information that he should have gone, whoa, okay, I'm going to leave this one alone. A lot of information that could have said to him, I don't need to commit this sin. I can stop right here. I can make a choice because these pieces of information aren't really the things I was looking for. I mean, he found out that Bathsheba was the granddaughter of one of his favorite advisors. Do you really want to, get in trouble with one of your favorite advisors when you're the king? Probably not. She was also the daughter of one of David's mighty men. To be one of David's mighty men, you had to be a great warrior. David knew who you were. He wrote down your name and knew what your great battle exploits were. So he knew that she was a daughter of one of his favored warriors. And she was married to another one of his mighty men. To another one of those guys who was probably out in the desert for him, rooting for him, keeping him safe from King Saul, wiping out Philistines, all that kind of good stuff. He hears the information. Information that if most of us heard, well, that girl over there, she's the daughter of one of your good friends, and then she is the granddaughter of one of your dad's friends, and then she is married to another one of your friends. Would you go any further? I mean, even if they were just dating, you'd leave it alone. You'd be like, no, I don't want to get into that drama. I don't want to go there. All of that information was right there. And he could have said, man, I don't want to live in reality television, okay? I don't want to live a crazy life with he said, she said. But that didn't stop him. Now, there was one piece of information that David finds out that could have maybe had some influence on him. And that was the piece of information where it says that Uriah was a Hittite. Now, Hittites were not Jews. Uriah was not a Jew. He was part of a people that Israel had conquered while they were going through Canaan. While they were taking over the promised land, there were the Hittites. They went over, they fought them, they defeated them. They became like servants. So Uriah is actually a servant to any Jew. Jews would look at him and go, we are Jews, you are a Hittite. You're lower than me. So there is the chance that David saw that, oh, it's only Uriah, a Hittite. You know, if it was a fellow Jew, maybe I wouldn't do this thing to him, but he's a Hittite. So he's not quite as important. So maybe there was a little bit of racism going on. A little bit of culturally identifying that I am better than you. But for most of us, we look at this information gathering and we go, oh, she's married. Skip that. But David chose to move on. The next thing that David does in his choice is to send somebody to check it out. I'm going to send somebody over there to find out this information, to see maybe if she likes me. How many of you have ever done that in school? I'm going to ask my friend to go over there and ask her if she thinks I'm a nice person. I'm going to send my friend over there and see if that guy likes me. Or you have a friend talk to his friend, and then you find out all the information that way, and of course it's not correct at all, and that gets all messy. But David sent some people over there to find out if she was willing. Maybe he's kind of testing out to see if there's any resistance. Maybe he still has this thought process in his mind where he goes, you know, if she says no, I don't really want to, maybe I'll stop now. Maybe I'll stop if I hit some kind of resistance. We have all been in that position, probably, where we have tested the water for a relationship, maybe for a job. You ask so-and-so to check and see if that job is still available, if they might like to have you to be hired. Let's see if it can work out. David tests the waters. He tested maybe to see if it would be uncomfortable. Maybe if she didn't want to be there. She could have said no. She could have fought it. She could have appealed to her father and grandfather. David knows them. But Bathsheba didn't seem to have any resistance. Now, I will say that there is a chance in Eastern culture that when the king says you do something, there is no point in resisting because it does not go well for you. So perhaps that is the way it went down. But we also know that Bathsheba was a pretty strong woman in her own right and was very good at manipulating David to get her son to be the next king of Israel, Solomon. So she probably had the ability to stand up for herself. But David didn't see any resistance, so he pressed on. And finally, he slept with her. He made the choice to have sex with her, to go all the way, as you kids out there say. At any point, he could have stopped. He could have made the choice to do something different. But he did not. This great man of faith one to be looked up to, made a choice to sin against God, to sin against Bathsheba, Uriah, her father and grandfather, himself, and all of Israel. Like that wouldn't be some kind of weight in his decision making. What about all those people that look up to you, David? But he did it quietly. But that didn't last very long. Not when she got pregnant and when she had, when David had a prophet over there who God gave a vision to and said, you know what? Hey, you need to go talk to David. I'll be honest, I think we could all use more prophets in our lives going, hey, that one right there, that's a sin. You better cut that out. You better change your ways. It'd be nice to have somebody to speak into our lives to help us avoid sin. But David had several opportunities to make a different choice. Yet this man of faith chose sin. David had a web of sin near him, but he took the leap into it. He jumped right in there. Here in this section about David, we clearly see what James says. In James 1, verses 14 to 15. But each one is tempted when by his own evil desires he is dragged away and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Sin is not temptation. You can be tempted and not sin. We know that Jesus was tempted 3 times. That was not sin. It must be given birth to. It must be chosen. David was captured by his own desires. He saw the temptation and he said, I like it. I want to keep it. I want to hang on to it. I want to take my little puppy home and love it. Gave birth to sin. The horribleness is that David chose to do this. The beauty of this situation is that for any of us, we have the choice to step away from sin. We have the opportunity to have this thing called free will. We are not locked into any way of believing or doing things. God has said you will have free will. And therefore, you have the responsibility of making the choice. Sin, when it gets to us, when temptation comes knocking at our door, when this web tries to get us caught in it, we have the choice. We have the choice to step up and fall into the sin or to run away from it. To make choices that guide us away from sin. We are people of faith. As people of faith, we know that we sin. We have faith in God. We have the chance to know Jesus Christ and to have the Holy Spirit reside in us, and the opportunity to have the Holy Spirit give us help when avoiding sin, when making these choices. This way that we exist now is not our final prize. There is no desire that you have that by fulfilling here on earth will be better than what is ahead. It could be money, it could be men, it could be women, it could be power, it could be authority. all of those kind of temptations, even when they are fulfilled, when we fulfill that desire in a place of sin, we'll never be as good as eternity. And the beauty of it all is that we have the choice. So be encouraged today that you have a choice to avoid sin. And I encourage you to make that choice when confronted by temptation. Make the choice to keep it in your pants.